Greetings, I'm John Lucas, President and CEO of ISEP Study Abroad, a global exchange consortium based here in Washington, D.C. If you hear an airplane flying overhead, that's because mobility has restarted, at least at the Washington National Airport, which is about 10 minutes from my office. It's great to see you all. Randall recommended that I bring coffee, but I must give you a health caution before I do that. I learned yesterday that if you replace your morning cup of coffee with a cup of weak tea and a collagen shot, you can reduce by up to 85% all the joy you have left in your life. So I don't know about you, I don't want to reduce my joy any further, so I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I invite you to do the same. So it's great to be with you. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about ISEP, and then our perspective on where things are headed in terms of mobility. We are a global organization. I sometimes say we're a global organization that happens to be based in the United States because our 300 member institutions are based in 60 countries around the world. And of our students, we support about 3,000 students on exchanges or study abroad in any given year prior to COVID. And of those, 40% are US students embarking on an international experience in another country. About another 40% are coming to the United States from other countries, and 20% are students from outside the United States studying at other countries outside the United States. And that is the sector that's growing the most for us, which is one of the trends that we'll talk about in a moment. And of course, our board, our council of advisors are also truly global, and we try to have at least 40% of our members be from other countries or cultures. So ISEP has a pretty broad perspective on the higher education world. We have public, private institutions, research intensive, liberal arts college, and technical colleges too as well. However, all of our mobility programs are short term, 1 year or less, the majority being semester, a few summer programs, and increasingly more tailored or customized solutions that we work on with our members. But that being said, it gives us a pretty good perspective on short-term mobility around the world. And I thought I could tell you a few things that we're seeing. The first of which is that students truly want a mobility experience face-to-face. We had about 75% of the applications of a normal pre-COVID year for this semester starting in September. Due to the Delta variant and challenges getting visas in some parts of the world, we ended up with about 60% of a normal year. And we are currently using our algorithm and our staff. It's a combination of a personal touch and an algorithm that places our students for the semester beginning in January. And we're already working on those as well. And we're looking like we're about 75% or greater applicants for next semester too. So that's all really good news. About 95, 96% of our members remained with us throughout COVID and have continued to be valuable members of our consortium, and that's really fantastic news as well. So what do these numbers kind of tell us about mobility? Well, the first is that students really do want a face-to-face mobility experience. We have seen great success with collaborative online international learning, the COIL programs, the term coined, of course, by the SUNY system. And I think COIL has a real promise for the future. That being said, when we surveyed our students to ask them, if there's a delay and we need to start our programs online and have a shorter in-person mobility experience, would you continue? We asked that question. The vast majority of our students said yes, as long as the online portion were only up to 8 weeks. If it was more than that, students said, they'd rather, if they could, postpone the experience to a time when they could go in person. So it tells you that desire for real connection is there and strong and unlikely to go away. That being said, the fact that we now know how to do global learning better, we've had the SUNY COIL model around for a long time, but we're learning to experiment with other models and hybrid approaches. And we've seen in COVID we can do that effectively. I think that will be with us for a long time. Here at ISEP, we see that has promise. We've had trouble scaling it. If any of you has an idea of how to make COIL model accessible to something like 2,000 or 3,000 students in any given semester, efficiently and affordably, let me know, because I have not yet figured that out. But we do have some virtual programs, and where we found more success with our students is when those virtual programs have deep intercultural engagement, even if it's virtual, for example, programs with a service learning or volunteer component. We've had some good success with those programs. And so those may continue to be a part of our portfolio in the future. And I suspect that's because, like the COIL model, they involve, faculty and staff on each side of the water working carefully to articulate learning outcomes and to create experiences where students can really meet others and engage with them. They might support an NGO by doing some work for them online, and then they get to meet the people behind the NGO. They might get to meet some of the clients, in some cases virtually. And I think that kind of engaged experience is popular with students, and it meets their objectives, and will probably continue. Unsurprisingly, as with long-term mobility, we've seen a shift in the balances, where students want to go and to, and where they're leaving from. No huge surprises there, and increasingly reduction in the market share of the United States vis-a-vis other countries. I think this is a trend that began before COVID. The cost of higher education in the United States is much greater than in many parts of the world, particularly housing and meal costs at campuses where students live in dormitories typically. And that has made it difficult for students to access mobility experiences in the United States. We try to address that at ISEP. We include tuition, room, and board. So students pay for tuition, room, and board at home, and they receive the same abroad, and that equalizes the cost. But overall in the field, I think the US has become less attractive. We know that there was a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the Trump administration about the future of international education and immigration in the United States. Once we had a new administration, and you can see this in the ISEP reports and other surveys, there's been a little bit of a return to interest in the United States. That being said, increasing competition, growth in Canada and in the UK, less obviously Australia, New Zealand remaining closed, and in the United States. And personally, I think that competition is a good thing for our field. We know that there are many outstanding experiences around the world. Certainly the US is no exception. But it is easy when you have the lion's share of inbound students to become complacent. And there are places where, that just haven't put in the effort and the time to ensure not only a strong academic experience, but that the international students are truly integrated in the life of the campus. And so competition will hopefully make us really work hard to do the best for our international students wherever we are. And those are kind of the shifts within the English-speaking world, but overall we're seeing a decrease in that, and an increase, as I noted before, in exchanges among countries outside the United States. A lot of South-South collaboration. We've seen increasingly groups of students from South Korea and Morocco, for example. Along with this trend, I think, and somewhat related, is the desire for really creative mobility solutions, not necessarily one for one semester for one semester, but hybrid models or asynchronous models where one institution wants to send a number of students in the summer, but receive students for a semester, vice versa. We've been working, even from here in DC, we've been working with our Australian partners on mobility programs to Fiji virtually now. We had some grant money for that. So we're really seeing an increase in creative solutions and in South-South collaboration, which again, I think is good for the field and holds us all accountable for really providing the best experiences. And finally, I think that there's good news for multilateral approaches. In addition to serving as the president of ISEP, I'm chairing the board of an organization called the Forum on Education Abroad, which in the United States supports member institutions on study abroad and student mobility. We welcome international members and are increasingly becoming international. We took US out of our mission statement a couple of years ago to really try to be global. And both the Forum and ISEP have seen our membership numbers be really quite high, and the dedication of our members consistent and strong. And I think that's because, similar to our students, we as professionals value the interpersonal connection, not just the fun and the camaraderie, although that's great too. Some of the best ideas, obviously, that we get are from our colleagues when we're meeting face-to-face. Challenges for the organizations that are dependent too much on conferences. The Forum on Education Abroad, which has a conference here in the United States, has had to do a lot of virtual programs for our members, and those things have helped us with the revenue. Here at ISEP, we've done a lot of virtual programs for our members as well. And I think that's probably true of you at BCCIE and other places. But there's real resilience, and I do think that overall, if we're able to pivot in how we deliver our services, there's good news for multilateral collaborative approaches. In addition to the interpersonal experience I talked about, frankly, these kinds of experiences through consortium are simply more affordable. And institutions that can't replace their staff will find that for a much smaller membership fee, there are lots of services available at institutions like BCCIE or CBIE, EAIE, ISEP, which actually does the programs, CONAHEC as well, you're familiar with. And I know Randall and I've talked a bit about the fact that BCCIE is heading up the UMAP initiative as its president, which I believe rotates. And that's exciting news. And I would encourage people to think about multilateralism and multilateral approaches in their future, no matter what consortia or consortium you might be a part of, because I think those are going to be ways to bring back mobility affordably and more quickly. Those are just a few of the ideas and trends that we're seeing here at ISEP. I certainly hope that BCCIE will be able to sponsor API and that we'll be able to meet and discuss all of these trends in person. I know you all will do a fantastic job. I'd love to have a cup of coffee or perhaps a glass of excellent wine that you have up there in British Columbia and discuss with you further. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.